The elevator doors slid shut with a soft hiss, sealing me inside with the one person I'd been desperately trying to avoid all morning. Sterling Cross stood in the corner, arms crossed, his steel-gray eyes fixed on me like I was some kind of insect he'd found crawling across his desk. The silence between us was suffocating, broken only by the mechanical hum of the elevator ascending. My heart hammered so hard against my ribs that I wondered if he could hear it, if he could sense the panic radiating off me in waves. "Do you have any idea what you just did?" His voice cut through the tension like a blade. Cold, precise, lethal. I forced myself to meet his gaze, even though every instinct screamed at me to look away. "Sir, it was an accident. The coffee, I mean. I didn't see her bag there. An accident." He repeated the words slowly as if tasting each syllable, finding it bitter. "You spilled an entire cup of hot coffee on Alina's $15,000 handbag, and you're calling it an accident?" The number made my stomach drop. $15,000. That was more than I made in 6 months as an intern. More than my rent for an entire year. "I'll pay for it," I blurted out, knowing even as the words left my mouth how ridiculous they sounded. "I can work extra hours." "Extra hours?" Sterling's laugh was harsh, devoid of humor. "You think this is about money? Alina is sensitive, Colin. She doesn't understand why people like you even exist in spaces like this. People like me." The phrase hit like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. I knew exactly what he meant, even if he didn't say it outright. People like me, omegas, trying to blend into a world designed for alphas, taking suppressants every morning just to mask what we were, hoping no one would notice the truth. The elevator chimed, indicating we'd reached the executive floor, but Sterling made no move toward the door. Instead, he stepped closer, and I caught the scent of his cologne, something expensive and sharp, like manure and smoke. "I want you to stay away from her," he said quietly, but there was nothing soft about his tone. "From this point forward, you don't speak to Alina. You don't look at her. You don't even exist in the same room as her. Are we clear?" Something inside me snapped. Maybe it was the condescension in his voice, or the way he assumed I'd been staring at his girlfriend with some kind of inappropriate interest. Maybe I was just tired of being invisible, of swallowing every insult and bowing my head like I deserved to be treated this way. "I wasn't looking at her like that," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my own voice. "I wasn't looking at her at all, actually." Sterling's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me, I'm not interested in your girlfriend, Mr. Cross." The words tumbled out before I could stop them, fueled by weeks of suppressed frustration and fear. "I'm not interested in any woman, so you can drop the protective boyfriend act, because she's not my type." The silence that followed was deafening. Sterling stared at me, his expression shifting from anger to something I couldn't quite read. Surprise, maybe, or confusion. His gaze traveled over my face slowly, lingering on details I wished he wouldn't notice. "Not your type," he repeated finally. "Meaning what, exactly?" My face burned, but I held my ground. "Meaning exactly what you think it means. I like men. So whatever threat you think I pose to your relationship doesn't exist." For a moment Sterling said nothing. The elevator doors had long since closed again, taking us back down to the lobby level. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower, almost thoughtful. "You're telling me you're gay." "I'm telling you that you have nothing to worry about," I corrected, avoiding the label even though it fit. Labels had a way of making things complicated in corporate environments, and I'd worked too hard to get this internship to throw it away now. Sterling's jaw tightened. Something flickered in his eyes. Not anger this time, but something closer to calculation. "Then we don't have a problem." The doors opened again, this time to the lobby. Sterling stepped out without another word, leaving me alone in the elevator with my racing heart and the sinking realization that I'd just confessed something deeply personal to the CEO of the company. Something I'd spent years hiding from everyone who mattered. I stepped into the lobby on shaking legs, trying to process what had just happened. Around me, people moved with purpose. Executives in tailored suits, assistants rushing to meetings, delivery personnel navigating the chaos. No one looked at me. No one cared about the minor crisis I'd just survived. Or so I thought. "Colin, right?" The voice came from behind me, smooth and warm like honey. I turned to find a man standing there, tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell just slightly into his eyes. He had the kind of face that belonged in magazines, Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, a smile that managed to be both friendly and dangerous at the same time. Yes, I managed, my brain still catching up to the present moment. And you are Cain Reed. He extended his hand, and when I shook it, his grip was firm and warm. Sterling's best friend. I heard you two had an interesting conversation in the elevator just now. My stomach dropped for the second time in 10 minutes. You heard that? Not directly. Cain's smile widened, showing perfect white teeth. But Sterling texted me. He has a habit of sharing things when they catch him off guard. And apparently you caught him very off guard. I wanted to disappear, to melt into the polished marble floor and never resurface. Look, whatever he told you, relax. Cain moved closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne, different from Sterling's, woodier and warmer, with hints of cedar and something else I couldn't identify. I'm not here to give you a hard time. Actually, I'm here to give you some advice. Advice? If you like men, Cain said quietly, his voice pitched low enough that only I could hear. Maybe you should be talking to someone other than Sterling Cross. My breath caught in my throat. The way he said it, the way he looked at me. There was something deliberate about it, something that made my pulse quicken for entirely different reasons than fear. I don't understand, I whispered. Cain's smile turned knowing, almost predatory. You will. He pulled a business card from his pocket and pressed it into my palm, his fingers lingering against mine for just a fraction of a second longer than necessary. The contact sent electricity racing up my arm. Call me if you ever want to grab coffee, he said. Real coffee. Not the kind that ends up on expensive handbags. Before I could respond, he turned and walked away, leaving me standing in the middle of the lobby with his card burning a hole in my hand and 1,000 questions spinning through my mind. What had just happened? And why did I suddenly feel like I'd stepped into something far more complicated than a simple workplace incident? The next morning, I arrived at the office 30 minutes early, hoping to avoid any awkward encounters. My strategy was simple. Keep my head down, finish my assigned tasks, and pretend yesterday never happened. No more elevator confrontations with Sterling Cross. No more cryptic conversations with his mysteriously charming best friend. But the universe, as always, had other plans. As I approached my cubicle, I noticed something immediately out of place. A steaming cup of coffee sitting on my desk, still hot enough that wisps of vapor curled from the lid. Next to it sat a mild white card with neat handwriting that made my heart skip. Thought you might need this after yesterday. Hope it's better than the one you spilled. Cain. Of course it was Cain. I picked up the cup carefully, inhaling the rich aroma of caramel and vanilla. The caramel latte, my favorite. But I'd never told anyone in this office what I preferred. How could he possibly know? Good morning. I spun around so fast I nearly knocked the coffee over again. Cain stood at the entrance to my cubicle, one shoulder leaning casually against the partition, hands in his pockets like he had all the time in the world. He wore a dark blue suit that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe, and his hair was slightly disheveled in a way that looked intentional. You scared me, I said, pressing a hand to my chest where my heart was trying to escape. Sorry. But he didn't look sorry at all. If anything, he looked amused. I wanted to make sure you got the coffee while it was still hot. How did you know I drink caramel lattes? Cain shrugged, that easy smile never leaving his face. I pay attention to things. People, mostly. What they order at the cafeteria. How they take their coffee. The little habits they think no one notices. He paused, his gaze holding mine. Especially when they're interesting. I'm not interesting, I protested weakly. Now that's where you're wrong. Cain pushed off from the partition and took a step closer. You're probably the most interesting person in this building, Colin. You just don't realize it yet. Before I could formulate a response, the loudspeaker crackled to life, announcing a mandatory morning meeting in the main conference room. Cain glanced at his watch, then back at me. Saved by the bell, he said with a wink. See you in there. He walked away, leaving me clutching the coffee cup like a lifeline and wondering what alternate reality I'd woken up in. The conference room was already packed when I arrived, filled with executives, department heads, and senior staff. I found a seat near the back, hoping to blend into the furniture, but my eyes kept finding Cain across the room. He sat next to Sterling at the front, both of them relaxed and confident in a way I would never be. Sterling was explaining something about quarterly projections, his voice commanding the room's attention. but every few minutes I felt Cain's gaze drift in my direction. Not obviously, he was too smooth for that, but I sense it, the weight of his attention like a physical touch. When the meeting finally ended, I tried to slip out quickly but Sterling's voice stopped me cold. "Colin, a moment please." Everyone else filed out, including Cain, who gave me a look I couldn't decipher before disappearing into the hallway. Soon it was just me and Sterling in the massive conference room, the silence pressing down like a weight. "I wanted to follow up on our conversation yesterday," Sterling began, his tone measured and professional. "About your revelation." I shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, if this is about Alina, I already explained." "It's not about Alina." He cut me off, but not unkindly. "It's about Cain." My stomach clenched. "I don't understand." Sterling studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "Cain is my oldest friend. We've known each other since college. I know him better than anyone, which means I know when he's isn't something, or someone. He's just being friendly," I said quickly, though even I didn't believe it. "Cain doesn't do just friendly." Sterling crossed his arms, a gesture that seemed more protective than threatening. "When he wants something, he goes after it. Hard. And he doesn't always think about the consequences." "What are you trying to say?" "I'm saying that you need to be careful." Sterling's voice softened slightly. "Cain comes from a world very different from yours, Colin. His family, his connections, his expectations, they're complicated, and people like you." He stopped himself, seeming to reconsider his words. "People in your position can get hurt when they get involved with someone like him." There it was again. People like you. The phrase that reduced me to a category, a type, something less than. "I appreciate the concern," I said stiffly, "but I can take care of myself." "Can you?" Sterling's eyes were sharp. "Because from where I'm standing, you look like someone who's already in over their head." The door opened before I could respond. Cain walked back in, his easy demeanor replaced with something harder, more defensive. "We done here, Sterling?" His tone was casual but there was an edge underneath. Sterling glanced between us, then nodded slowly. "For now." He left without another word, and suddenly the conference room felt both too big and too small. Cain turned to me, concern etched into his features. "What did he say to you?" "Nothing important." I lied. "Just work stuff." Cain stepped closer, close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. "Colin, if Sterling said something to make you uncomfortable, why are you doing this?" The question burst out before I could stop it. The coffee, the attention, the "why do you care?" Cain was quiet for a moment, his gaze searching my face like he was trying to memorize every detail. "Because I think you're worth caring about. And because I have a feeling you don't hear that then." My throat tightened with unexpected emotion. "You don't know me." "Then let me." His voice dropped lower. "Intimate. Have lunch with me today. Away from here. Away from Sterling. Away from all of this. Just you and me getting to know each other." Every logical part of my brain screamed that this was a bad idea. Sterling's warning echoed in my ears, but there was something in Cain's expression, something genuine and hopeful, that made it impossible to say no. "Okay," I whispered. "Lunch." Cain's face lit up with a smile that could have powered the entire building. "I know a place. Meet me in the lobby at noon?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. He squeezed my shoulder gently, a brief touch that somehow felt more intimate than it should, and then left, leaving me alone with my racing thoughts and the overwhelming certainty that I was about to make either the best or worst decision of my life. Possibly both. Cain's place turned out to be a small Italian restaurant tucked away on a quiet side street, the kind of hidden gem you'd walk past 100 times without noticing. Inside, the atmosphere was warm and inviting, with exposed brick walls, soft lighting, and the rich aroma of garlic and fresh herbs. We were seated at a corner table by the window, sunlight streaming in and painting everything in shades of gold. "This is beautiful," I said, taking in the intimate setting. "It's been here for 30 years, Cain explained as he studied the menu. "The owner is a friend of my mother's. Best carbonara in the city. Guarantee." A waiter appeared and Cain ordered in what sounded like flawless Italian. When he caught me staring, he grinned sheepishly. "Spent a summer in Rome during college," he explained. "Picked up the language along with an appreciation for really good pasta." "Of course you did." I couldn't help but smile. Everything about Cain seemed effortlessly perfect. The kind of person who collected experiences like other people collected stamps. Your turn, Cain said once the waiter departed. Tell me something about yourself. Something real. I hesitated, fingers tracing the edge of my water glass. What do you want to know? Everything. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, giving me his full attention in a way that made me feel simultaneously exposed and cherished. Where you grew up. What you love. What keeps you up at night. The real Colin. Not the version you show everyone at work. The sincerity in his voice disarmed me. I'd spent so long building walls, hiding behind pleasantries and professional distance, that I'd almost forgotten how to be honest. My family never accepted me, I heard myself saying. The words came slowly at first, then faster, like water breaking through a dam. When they found out I was an omega, they acted like it is a disease. Something shameful. They wanted me to hide it, to take suppressants and pretend to be normal. So that's what I did. Cain listened without interrupting, his expression growing softer with each word. I moved here for college, took out loans I'll be paying off for the next decade, and landed this internship through sheer luck. Every day I wake up terrified someone will figure out what I am and decide I don't belong. That I'm not good enough. And the suppressants? Cain asked gently. You're still taking them? I nodded. Every morning. They mask the scent, make it harder for alphas to detect what I am. It's easier this way. Easier for who? The question caught me off guard. For everyone. For me. Or easier for the people who made you feel like you had to hide in the first place. Cain's jaw tightened. Colin, there's nothing wrong with being an omega. Nothing shameful about it. Easy for you to say. The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. You're an alpha. Successful. Confident. Connected. You don't know what it's like to walk into a room and have people dismiss you before you even open your mouth. You're right, Cain admitted. I don't know what that's like. But I do know what it's like to feel trapped by other people's expectations. He paused, choosing his words carefully. My father built an empire. My mother comes from old money. They have very specific ideas about who I should be, who I should date, how I should live my life. And for years, I played along because it was easier than fighting. What changed? Cain's eyes met mine, and there was something raw in his gaze. I realized that living for other people's approval was killing the parts of me that actually mattered, the parts that made me human. He reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of mine. You asked me yesterday why I care. Here's the truth. I see myself in you, Colin. The person you're trying to hide, the one you think isn't good enough. That's the person worth knowing. My chest felt tight, emotions swirling too fast to name. No one had ever spoken to me like this, with such unflinching honesty and acceptance. The food arrived, providing a brief respite from the intensity of the conversation. We ate in comfortable silence for a while, the flavors as incredible as Cain had promised. But I could feel the questions building, the connection between us deepening with each passing minute. Can I ask you something? I said finally. Anything. Sterling warned me about you. Said you're impulsive, that you don't think about consequences when you want something. I set down my fork, meeting his gaze directly. Was he right? Cain didn't flinch from the question. Sometimes, when something matters to me, I have a tendency to dive in head first. It's gotten me into trouble before, and is that what you're doing now? With me? Maybe. His honesty was disarming. Or maybe I'm just finally doing something that feels right for the first time in a long while. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed insistently. Cain glanced at the screen and frowned. It's Sterling. There's an emergency at the office. He looked genuinely torn. Colin, I'm sorry, I have to go, I said, trying to hide my disappointment. It's fine. But Cain didn't move immediately. Instead, he pulled out his wallet, left enough cash to cover the meal twice over, and then did something that made my heart stop. He took my hand in his, right there in the middle of the restaurant where anyone could see. This isn't how I wanted today to end, he said. Let me make it up to you. Dinner tomorrow night. A real date, just the two of us. A date, I repeated, the word feeling foreign on my tongue. Yes, a date. Cain squeezed my hand gently. If you want, no pressure, no expectations. Just two people getting to know each other. I should have said no. Every rational part of my brain knew this was moving too fast. That getting involved with Cain was asking for complications I couldn't handle. But looking into his eyes, seeing the hope and vulnerability there, I couldn't bring myself to refuse. Okay? I breathed. Tomorrow night. Cain's smile could have lit up the entire city. He stood, reluctantly releasing my hand, and I felt the loss of his touch like a physical thing. I'll text you the details, he promised, already backing toward the door. And Colin? Thank you for trusting me today. It means more than you know. Then he was gone, leaving me alone at the table with half-eaten pasta and a heart that wouldn't stop racing. I sat there for a long time after he left, trying to process everything that had happened. This morning I'd been determined to keep my distance, to play it safe. Now I had a date with Cain Reed. Despite all my reservations, I found myself actually looking forward to it. My phone buzzed as I was settling the bill Cain had already paid. An unknown number. Stay away from Cain. You don't belong in his world. The message hit me like cold water, extinguishing the warmth Cain had kindled. I stared at the screen, my hands beginning to shake. Who would send this? And how did they even have my number? I typed back, "Who is this?" No response. The walk back to the office felt longer than usual, paranoia creeping in at the edges of my consciousness. Every person I passed seemed suspicious, every glance potentially hostile. By the time I reached my desk, my earlier happiness had curdled into anxiety. Another message arrived as I sat down. Final warning: leave him alone, or you'll regret it. This time the fear was real, sharp and immediate. Someone was watching me. Someone knew about lunch with Cain, and whoever they were, they wanted me gone. I arrived at the office before sunrise, hoping the early hour would grant me solitude. Sleep had been impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, those threatening messages flashed through my mind like neon warnings. The empty workspace felt safer somehow, the silence preferable to facing Cain's inevitable questions. But safety was an illusion. "You look terrible." I jumped, nearly dropping my bag. Cain stood near the coffee station, 2 cups already prepared, his usual polished appearance slightly disheveled, like he'd also had a sleepless night. "Didn't expect anyone else this early," I said, avoiding his gaze. He crossed the space between us with purposeful strides, setting both cups on my desk before crouching beside my chair. The position put us at eye level, making it impossible to hide. "Colin." His voice was gentle but firm. "Something's wrong. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending otherwise." The concern in his expression almost broke me. Part of me desperately wanted to confess everything, to let someone else carry this burden. But dragging Cain into whatever mess I'd stumbled into felt selfish, dangerous. "Just exhausted," I managed. "This internship is more demanding than I anticipated." Cain studied my face with an intensity that made my pulse quicken. "When you're ready to tell me the truth, I'll be here. No judgment, no pressure. Just here." He squeezed my shoulder briefly before standing, the loss of his touch leaving me oddly bereft. As he walked away, guilt settled heavy in my chest. Cain deserved honesty, but how could I explain that someone wanted me gone badly enough to threaten violence? The morning dragged. I kept my head down, completed assignments mechanically, and avoided Cain despite his repeated attempts to catch my attention. Every notification made me flinch, expecting another menacing message. By afternoon, my nerves were frayed to breaking. "Colin." "My office. Now." Sterling's voice cut through my anxious spiral. He stood in the doorway of his private suite, expression unreadable. My stomach plummeted. Had he discovered the messages? Did he know about lunch with Cain? I followed him on unsteady legs, hyper-aware of the curious glances from colleagues. Sterling closed the door behind us with an ominous click. "Sit." I obeyed, hands clasped tight to stop their trembling. Sterling pulled a manila folder from his desk drawer and slid it across the polished surface. "Open it." Inside were printed screenshots of every threatening message I'd received. My breath caught, shock rendering me momentarily speechless. "How did you—" "Cain tracked your phone when you refused to explain why you look like death warmed over." Sterling's tone carried no apology. "Before you get angry, understand that he was worried, genuinely concerned for your well-being. He had no right." "He had every right." Sterling's interruption was sharp. "These messages constitute harassment and threats of violence. You should have reported them immediately." Shame heated my face. "I thought I could handle it alone." "Handle it?" Sterling leaned forward, and for the first time since I'd met him, I saw something other than cold professionalism in his eyes. "Colin, whoever sent these isn't playing games. This is serious. I know that. My voice cracked slightly. But I didn't want Cain involved. If something happened to him because of me, stop. Sterling's command silenced me. I misjudged you initially. I thought you were just another person looking to use Cain's connections, his wealth, his influence. I was wrong. The admission stunned me into silence. Cain cares about you. Sterling continued, his expression softening marginally. More than I've seen him care about anyone in years. And despite my initial reservations, I can see you care about him too. Which is why I'm going to help you trace these messages and find out who's behind them. You'd do that? For Cain? Yes. And maybe he paused, choosing words carefully, because you deserve better than to live in fear for being yourself. Before I could respond, his office door burst open. Cain entered like a storm, eyes wild with barely controlled emotion. Why didn't you tell me? He crossed to where I sat, gripping the armrests of my chair, caging me in. Threatening messages, Colin? Someone wants to hurt you. You kept it hidden? I didn't want you worried. Too late. Cain's voice rose, then broke. I've been worried since yesterday when you could barely look at me. I've been terrified something was wrong and I couldn't fix it because you wouldn't let me in. Tears pricked my eyes. This isn't your problem to fix. Like hell it isn't. Cain pulled me to standing, hands gripping my shoulders. You're mine to protect now, whether you like it or not. Whether you think you deserve it or not. I'm not letting you face this alone. The possessiveness in his declaration should have frightened me. Instead, it felt like a lifeline. Sterling cleared his throat diplomatically. Perhaps continue this conversation elsewhere. My office isn't exactly private. Cain's jaw clenched, but he nodded. We're leaving. Now, but work is meaningless compared to your safety. He grabbed my hand, lacing our fingers together with determination. Sterling, I'm taking the rest of the day. Handle whatever needs handling. Sterling nodded, an almost fond expression crossing his features. Go. I'll make calls, see what we can find out about the message source. Cain practically dragged me through the office, his grip on my hand never wavering despite the stares and whispers that followed our exit. In his car, he sat gripping the steering wheel, knuckles white. Tell me everything, he said quietly. Every message, every threat. All of it. So I did. The words tumbled out, the warnings to stay away, the escalating hostility, my fear that getting close to him had painted a target on my back. Cain listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each revelation. When I finished, he turned to face me fully. Why did you think you had to protect me? Because losing you would destroy me, I whispered, the confession slipping out before I could stop it. We barely know each other, but somehow you've become this anchor. The thought of you getting hurt because of me, I couldn't bear it. Cain's expression melted into something tender and fierce simultaneously. He cupped my face with both hands, thumbs brushing away tears I hadn't realized were falling. You're not losing me, he said with absolute conviction. Not to threats, not to fear, not to anything. We face this together, understand? I nodded, unable to speak past the emotion clogging my throat. Cain pressed his forehead to mine, a gesture so intimate it stole my breath. You're staying with me tonight. Tomorrow too. However long it takes to resolve this situation and ensure you're safe. Cain, non-negotiable. His voice left no room for argument. My penthouse has security that would make Fort Knox jealous. You'll be safe there. As he started the car, my phone buzzed one final time. You were warned. Now you'll pay. But this time Cain's hand found mine across the console. Solid and reassuring. This time I wasn't facing the threat alone. Cain's penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a building downtown. All gleaming glass and modern minimalism. But despite the obvious wealth on display, the space felt lived in, books scattered across surfaces. A well-worn throw blanket draped over the leather sofa, photographs clustered on the mantel showing Cain at various ages, always smiling. Make yourself comfortable, Cain said, shrugging out of his jacket. Kitchen's fully stocked if you're hungry. Guest room is down the hall though. He paused, vulnerability flickering across his features. I'd prefer if you stayed close, just until we know you're safe. I wandered to the windows, taking in the sprawling city view. From up here, everything looked small, manageable. The problems chasing me felt distant. This is incredible, I murmured. Cain joined me, standing close enough that our shoulders brushed. I bought this place, thinking it would make me happy. Turns out luxury doesn't cure loneliness. The raw honesty in his admission made me turn to face him. You're lonely? Was, he corrected, eyes finding mine. Past tense. Everything changed when you walked into that elevator and called Sterling out with zero apologies. Watching you stand your ground despite being terrified, it woke something up inside me. I wasn't that brave, I protested. I was just tired of hiding. Exactly. Cain's hand found the small of my back, the touch sending electricity racing through me. You were authentic in a world full of carefully constructed masks. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Before I could respond, his phone shattered the moment. Sterling's name flashed on the screen. Cain answered with visible reluctance. What did you find? I watched his expression shift, confusion melting into shock, then hardening into cold fury. Are you absolutely certain? No, I believe you. It's just Christ. Okay. Yes, we'll handle it. Thanks for the information. He ended the call and stood motionless, processing whatever Sterling had revealed. Cain? Anxiety crept into my voice. Who sent the messages? Alina. The name emerged flat, emotionless. Sterling's girlfriend. My mind went blank. That's impossible. Why would she? Jealousy. Cain began pacing, energy crackling around him. Apparently she convinced herself you were after Sterling. When she saw us together at the restaurant, she decided you were playing both of us, using manipulation to climb the corporate ladder. That's insane. Anger flared hot in my chest. I never looked at Sterling romantically. Not one. I know. Cain stopped pacing, facing me with blazing intensity. Sterling knows too. He's confronting her now. But there's more. Dread pulled in my stomach. What do you mean? The messages weren't just threats. She hired someone, a private investigator initially, to gather information about you. But in her last communication with him, she suggested Cain's jaw clenched so hard I heard teeth grinding, escalating to physical intimidation, making you disappear from our lives permanently. Ice flooded my veins. She wants to hurt me. Wanted. Cain corrected, crossing to me in 2 strides. Sterling's already contacted the police. She's being brought in for questioning. The investigator she hired is cooperating with authorities to avoid charges himself. Relief made my knees weak. Cain caught me as I swayed, guiding me to the sofa. It's over? I whispered. The immediate threat? Yes. Cain knelt before me, hands resting on my knees. But Colin, this happened because of me. Because you got close to me, you became a target. That's not your fault, isn't it? Anguish colored his voice. My life comes with complications. Money attracts attention, both good and bad. People will always wonder about your motives for being with me. They'll make assumptions, spread rumors, question whether what we have is real. I gripped his hands tightly. Then we proved them wrong. Together. Cain searched my face, and whatever he saw there made his expression soften. You're absolutely certain? Because once we commit to this publicly, there's no taking it back. The scrutiny will be intense. I've spent my whole life hiding who I am, I said firmly, suppressing my nature, pretending to be something more acceptable. I'm done with that. If being with you means facing judgment, then at least I'll be facing it as myself. Something shifted in Cain's eyes, wonder mixing with fierce determination. He rose smoothly, pulling me up with him. There's something I need to say, and I need you to really hear it. His hands framed my face with devastating tenderness. I'm falling in love with you, Colin. Maybe I already have. I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. But denying it would be dishonest. You've become essential to me in a matter of days. Tears blurred my vision. Cain, you don't have to say it back, he interrupted gently. I just needed you to know. Needed you to understand that this isn't casual for me. You're not a phase or an experiment. Everything, I finished, my own confession spilling free. You've become everything, and it terrifies me because I don't know how I'd survive losing you now. Cain kissed me then. Not the gentle, tentative kiss from before, but something claiming and desperate. His hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer as if trying to merge our bodies into one. I melted into him, letting the fear and tension of the past days dissolve in the heat between us. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Cain rested his forehead against mine. Stay tonight, he murmured. Not in the guest room. With me. I need to know you're safe. Need to feel you breathing beside me. Yes. I agreed without hesitation. His phone rang again. Sterling updating us that Alina was in custody, that she'd confessed everything to avoid more serious charges. The investigator had provided evidence of her escalating plans, ensuring she'd face legal consequences. Relief crashed over me in waves. Cain held me through it, solid and unwavering. "It's really over," I said against his chest. "The threat is," Cain confirmed. "But our story, that's just beginning." That night, curled in Cain's arms with city lights painting patterns across the ceiling, I finally felt safe enough to sleep. His heartbeat under my ear was steady, reassuring, a promise that whatever came next, we'd face it together. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel alone. Morning sunlight filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows, warm on my face. For a disoriented moment, I forgot where I was. Then Cain's arm tightened around my waist, anchoring me to reality. I was in his bed, in his home, safe. "Good morning," Cain's sleep-rough voice rumbled against my back. "How'd you sleep?" "Better than I have in months," I admitted, rolling to face him. His hair stuck up at odd angles, and morning stubble shadowed his jaw. He looked younger, like this, unguarded, beautiful in a way that made my chest ache. "Stay home with me today," he said, fingers tracing idle patterns on my shoulder. "The office can survive without us for 24 hours. Don't you have meetings? Nothing that can't be rescheduled." His expression grew serious. "I need this, Colin. Need to know you're safe and close. Just for today, let me be selfish." How could I refuse when he looked at me like that? We spent the morning in comfortable domesticity, Cain making breakfast while I explored his book collection, discovering a surprising number of poetry volumes mixed with business texts. We ate on the balcony, the city sprawling below us, and talked about everything except yesterday's revelations. It felt normal. Beautifully, impossibly normal. Around noon, Cain's phone chimed. He read the message, expression brightening. "Sterling says Alina's confessed to everything. She's facing harassment charges, possibly attempted assault given the evidence of her plans. The investigator she hired is cooperating fully." Relief washed through me. "So it's really finished, completely." Cain set his phone aside, reaching for my hand. "Which brings me to something I've been thinking about all morning." Nervousness fluttered in my stomach. "What?" "I want to go public. With us. With what we are to each other." He spoke carefully, gauging my reaction. "I know it's fast. I know there'll be backlash from some people. But hiding you, pretending you're just a colleague or friend, I can't do it. Won't do it." My heart hammered. "You mean like an official announcement?" "Company-wide email to start. Clear, direct, no room for misinterpretation." Cain's thumb stroked across my knuckles. "I want everyone to know you're with me, that you have my full support and protection. That anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me personally. Your reputation means nothing compared to being authentic." His intensity stole my breath. "You said yesterday you're done hiding. So am I. We deserve to exist openly, Colin. To build something real without shame or secrecy." Emotion clogged my throat. "You're sure? Because once it's out there, I've never been more certain of anything." Cain's conviction rang clear. "I love you. I want the world to know it." Those 3 words, "I love you," sent my heart soaring. I'd heard him say them last night, but hearing them again in the clear light of day made them real in a way I couldn't have anticipated. "I love you too," I whispered, the confession feeling both terrifying and liberating. "So much it scares me." Cain's smile could have powered the entire city. He kissed me thoroughly, pouring every ounce of feeling into the connection. When we parted, we were both grinning like fools. "Come on," he said, pulling me inside. "Let's write this email together." We spent 20 minutes crafting the message, Cain insisting I read every word, making sure I was comfortable with the wording. The final version was simple but powerful. "I'm writing to share personal news. Colin Matthews and I are in a relationship. He's intelligent, compassionate, and one of the bravest people I've ever met. I wanted to be transparent with all of you, because honesty matters to me and so does he. I hope you'll join me in treating Colin with the respect and dignity he deserves. Thank you for your understanding. Cain." My hand shook slightly as Cain hovered over the send button. "Last chance to back out," he said softly. "Send it." He did. Within seconds, his phone erupted with notifications. Then mine started buzzing. Colleagues reaching out, some supportive, others shocked, a few hostile. Cain's hand found mine, steady and grounding. "Ready to face the world?" he asked. "With you?" always. We arrived at the office an hour later, walking in together with our fingers intertwined. The lobby went quiet as we entered, conversations stopping mid-sentence, heads turning. I felt the weight of every stare, but Cain's presence beside me made it bearable. Sterling waited by the elevators, Alina conspicuously absent. When he saw us, something like approval crossed his features. "Bold move," he said to Cain. Then to my surprise, he looked at me. "Welcome to the family, officially. Anyone gives you trouble, report it directly to me." The acceptance in his tone nearly undid me. "Thank you." As we rode the elevator up, Cain never released my hand. On our floor, people whispered and stared, but he kept his head high, radiating confidence. In his office, he pulled me close. "How are you feeling?" "Exposed," I admitted, "but also free. For the first time, I'm not hiding any part of myself." "Good." Cain brushed a kiss to my temple. "Because I plan to spend every day showing you exactly how much you're valued. Starting now." The intercom buzzed, his assistant informing him of back-to-back meetings. Cain grimaced. "Duty calls. But tonight, I'm taking you somewhere special. A proper celebration." "Of what?" "Us. Our courage. Our future." His smile was radiance. "Everything worth celebrating." That evening, he took me to a rooftop restaurant with panoramic city views. We ate and talked and laughed, and when other diners recognized Cain and gave us disapproving looks, he simply pulled me closer, defiant. "I used to care so much about appearances," he said as we watched the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. "About maintaining the right image, meeting expectations. You've shown me what actually authenticity, connection, being brave enough to choose happiness over approval." I leaned into him, feeling complete in a way I'd never experienced. "You've given me the same gift, the freedom to exist without apology." Cain turned to face me fully, eyes shining with emotion. "Move in with me." I blinked, certain I'd misheard. "What?" "Move in with me," he repeated. "I know it's fast, but I don't want to waste time pretending we're not already committed. I want to wake up with you every morning, build a life together, make a home that's ours." Joy bubbled up, effervescent and bright. "Yes, absolutely yes." His kiss tasted like wine and promise and forever. Walking out of that restaurant hand in hand, I realized something profound. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving. I was living fully, openly, unapologetically, and I'd never felt more free.